Hey Queens, it's so great to be back again, right?
Yay!
We have a wonderful, wonderful discussion lined up today, and it's all about wealth. But before we go there, Here we are, we three queens. I'm Achieng.
I'm Micheline.
And I'm Musonda.
So let's talk wealth, girls. I mean, when we think about wealth, there's so many sort of dimensions to it, right? We thought it would be really good to just discuss, how do we look at wealth? What is your perspective on wealth? How do you define wealth? How do people relate to wealth? And especially when we think about African women. You hear all these stories about, women who suddenly, when they're divorced, have not a penny to rub together, or women staying in marriages that are either violent or toxic and not being able to leave because they don't have anywhere to go or no way to continue with the lifestyle, or even just to continue with life outside of the marriage. You hear of girls doing all sorts of things because they want to buy into a lifestyle, and they're ready to compromise everything for that. It all boils down to wealth in some way or form. So how do you guys define it? What's your take on wealth when you think about wealth?
For me, I don't know if I want to. I don't want to define wealth from a monetary perspective. I want to define wealth from health perspective. Because as I get older, I realize that really, truly, your health is your wealth. Because with you being healthy, you can do anything. And I'll come back a little bit later on this element of, women being financially independent, etc., and having some assets here and there, no matter how small. But I find that a lot of women kind of make an excuse of, I won't exercise, I'm going to eat crab. I just go along with the flow. I look okay, even if I'm round and brown and chubby, and then I have blood pressure and diabetes and stuff like that. And then you realize that the older you grow, I know women in their 60s or 70s, because I have intergenerational friends who are struggling. They're struggling with knees. They're struggling with blood pressure issues. They can't do things they wanted to do when they were younger because their health is really at stake.
But does culture have something to do with it? Cultural context?
To some extent.
Or social context, for that matter.
Culture and social context, because, of what they've been told. And, when you're getting married and she's too skinny, she has to have a meat on her bones. A woman has to look a certain way. And so then and it's a weird dynamic. So I think for me, when you're healthy, when you're consistently active, when you eat the right food, when you're very deliberate about what you want to do, for me, I make sure that I'm active every day, and I have young children, and I don't want to get into my 60s. I just entered the 5th floor. I want to go into the spaces healthy. And with being healthy, I have a good frame of mind. I have the right frame of mind. I have the capability and ability to make certain decisions well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I actually add on to that? Because then I'll touch on some of the things that intrigue me from what you've said. Why is it that there's so many millionaires out there, who aren't happy? So if we aspire to be wealthy, and wealth is something good, then surely wealth is some kind of happiness. So why aren't they happy?
But what's the price they're paying to be wealthy?
So and this is the thing. So I wanted to tag, onto this idea of, the mindfulness.
Correct.
Health. Wealth is health. I completely agree. And as part of that health, I would say that mental health.
Absolutely.
And so wealth for me is also, what my mind is telling me about, myself in a way. That sort of self-love, the self-awareness, because self-love is also knowing, sort of your flaws, things you want to improve on, and being kind to yourself and knowing that is you anyway. Just acknowledging that and accepting that. And wealth is also therefore, as part of that mindfulness, being responsible for the energy that one brings, but also, and I think Oprah does a good job talking about this, because I think I picked this up from her, being responsible for the energy that surrounds you, the friends, the people that you walk, this life with. And I think all of that go into the lovely sort of recipe box of wealth.
But I want to throw a spanner in the works.
And
though.
I knew you would.
Yeah, I want to throw a spanner because a lot of people watching are probably young people, and they're probably going to say, well, they're older, they've kind of built their lives, they've had great careers, so what do they know about the reality on the ground? So let's bring it down to the money.
It. I love that. I love that, and I saw that in your wonderful eyes and eyelashes. Oh, so fabulous! Oh my goodness! No, I really saw that question coming because even as I listened to myself, I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If you look at the continent, if you look just in many of the countries that we lived and worked in, there's just a lot of poverty.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right?
Exactly.
Financially. Right? Before you get to that wealth, there's getting over, and there's the whole, is it $1 a day or $2.50 a day? But there's a baseline that you have to reach to guarantee food, shelter,
Absolutely.
And then there's, but now I want to actually, be able to buy, I don't know, an outfit a quarter or go to the movies a month.
Yeah.
Achieving that. And then, depends on how you see wealth, but the whole, let's say, car, house, land, designer shoes, money in the bank still, those kinds of things, that material wealth. So you want us to get into that?
I want us to get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before you come in, Mus, here's the thing.
Yes.
I think a lot of times especially as young people, and I'm sure you can probably, when you think back, we get into those situations where we're very dependent on what people think or what other people are doing.
Correct.
And the point I wanted to bring up on wealth is that sometimes you can see an opportunity or you can see an idea or you can see something you want to try.
Right.
And then you've got all these naysayers. And I bet you everybody watching this thing is nodding, saying, oh yeah, I remember a naysayer.
Right.
You've got the naysayers who sort of say, no, you shouldn't. Oh no, but it can't work because of this.
Right.
Oh, but that. There's always all those buts. And my personal experience has been, sometimes you've got to just try.
And do you?
Do it. So what's the worst that can happen?
So what are you trying here? What are we talking about?
I'm going to give you, it could be business. It could
be,
ways in which you look for wealth, ways in which you build wealth.
Right.
I want to give you an example. Many years ago, I had a situation where, I was working, but there was a specific side hustle I wanted to try.
Okay.
And I had traveled and seen where I could source the things I wanted to sell.
Right.
All legal, by the way. I'm just keeping it abstract. But I had sourced the products that I wanted to sell. And it was a time when these products were not really available in the market, and I had found a supply point where I could get them and make them very, very accessible from a cost perspective.
Right.
So affordable. And my partner at the time, which is one of the many reasons why he's now my ex. Ex from way back.
Okay.
Not many exes later, but ex from way back. He said, because when I told him I want to start this business, I'm thinking, this is how I'm going to run it. This is where I'm going to make it available.
Right.
I really think there's an opportunity there. And it's a product that was relevant to women.
Right.
And his response was, why don't you just stick to what you know? Let me repeat. Why don't you stick to what you know?
Right.
And this is a guy who...
So don't dare take the risk.
Yeah, don't take because he was very comfortable with me just being in corporate. Maybe he was afraid that if I branched into that, then maybe life would change, our lifestyles, which I don't know what that was about.
Did he take risks for himself?
No.
I want to see where he was coming from, to see whether this is something...
Okay. It's a projection.
He was innately
risk
averse.
Yes.
And what you're thinking is he may also have had something around, why would my partner do this? Do you think there was a gender bias at all? Or this is just his normal stance on life?
I think it was a bias on the basis that we're comfortable now.
Yeah.
Because I'm covering everything.
Right.
All the costs and everything. We're comfortable now. If you branch into that, will it disrupt the comfort that he's in?
So it's that fear of discomfort.
Like there was something.
That fear of discomfort.
Yeah. And he didn't want the change because it might just make him
I want to pick up on that risk and what you wanted to do
Yes.
and talk about, because I wrote an article fairly recently where I say that comparison is the killer of joy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is we go through our journeys, especially as, African women and young Africans, because everybody says, go to university, do this. It's almost like there's this straight linear pathway.
It's all drawn out.
And then get married and then have children and then, without realizing that life in itself is a maze.
Yes.
And it's so... complicated
Yeah.
that this journey is your journey.
Yeah.
And when I left Zambia in the late 90s and I moved to Switzerland, to where I'm back now, it was fascinating because everybody was like, why would you leave home?
Yeah.
Right.
And then I left. I was in my 20s. I left. And being in Europe and suddenly realizing I don't have the auntie I will run to if I need salt or God knows what. How do I manage my money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was earning pretty little. I was an intern.
Yeah.
So how do I say? But my father had taught me and my twin sister when we were in boarding school, always, if I give you pocket money, put aside this amount.
Absolutely.
So we learned how to manage our monies in our teens,
Yeah.
how we deal with it. And we're very lucky, but it's not everybody that has that fortune, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, and being mindful that, look, I'm in a foreign country, I should try and make sure that I have a little bit of a cushion. And then I went to study. And of course, everybody was like, who does a PhD in wetland hydrology? Like, how is that going to take you? Because remember, the 90s were also the phase in early 2000 when everybody was going for an MBA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember that period?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
Yes.
I was one of those everybody's. Yeah.
Yes.
it was the, so I was like, MBA, PhD, what to do? Am I going to earn money?
Yeah.
And I hear it now more with young people who are like, can I work in an environment and have a comfortable life?
Yeah.
And you can.
Yes. Yes.
Of course you can.
Absolutely.
So there's so many. Okay, so a couple of thoughts there.
Yeah.
In no order, you were really lucky, Mus, to have had parents that taught you, how to manage your money, and that's one. We're older now, and so
Right.
parents hopefully have been great, and thank you for everything you've done, mom, dad. And some parents just didn't have that knack. So
Or
what I'd
knowledge.
say to that, in terms of what are those hacks, what are those tips and tricks? I would first say, if you're a parent, try and pass on some wealth management information, and one of them
Right.
is to try to save.
Yeah.
Now, this is obviously easier said than done, because often if you're sort of starting out, you have one job, that money is barely enough to cover your, one bedroom that you're sharing with a friend. You have to
Right.
sort of ground this in some reality,
Yeah.
And so you're being told to save, but you're like, listen, 60% of my take home is rent, and the rest I have to pay my electricity.
bills
Actually have to buy
yeah.
a shirt for work, even if it's secondhand. It's
Yeah.
still going to be like, a chunk of money. So I'm just saying, one, if you're in that situation as a parent or a carer or somebody who's maybe a mentor, advisor to someone young, try and pass on the information of saving.
Right.
If you've got somehow enough money, it's never going to be enough. So guess what? If you've got your magic, I don't know, let's say a unit of 1,000
Yeah.
a month, see how you can spend 500, 300, 500, 700. And even if you spend 980 and you're keeping 20,
Yeah.
you
It's
see what I
still
mean? But you're doing this
20
consistently
saved.
every month. Let me tell you, that practice, that habit is so important, because guess what? The people, I remember this friend of my mom, actually, I think it was, and she made so much more than my mom. She was always borrowing from mom.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
She was always
Oh, wow.
borrowing. And now in my, sort of adulthood, I realized it's a habit. Mom was a good saver.
Yeah.
This woman had I calculated that she had 5-6 times, because the salaries were published.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what's
so
interesting?
The habit
Yeah.
of saving, and this is something I'm really just emphasizing, is going to bode us well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
please
So
jump
I want
in,
to build
jump in.
on
I feel
that.
very strongly about that.
Yeah, it's powerful. I know for a fact, because I saved. There was something I was working on, or I wanted to invest in, and I remember saving. Somebody told me, "Oh, just go to the bank. We've talked to the bank. You can get a loan." Because we were a group of us.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I really don't want to get a loan. I need to just be disciplined. And I tell you, I opened a specific account where every time my paycheck arrived, I carved out money into that account.
Yes.
Right.
And I was able to make the investment without borrowing a single coin.
Yes.
But that was not the story I wanted to share. The story I
Okay.
wanted to share was,
But that was a really good habit, you see.
yeah,
And
but
you
it
started
works.
that
Whether it's
early
1,000,
on.
whether it's 10,000, whatever the
Yeah.
denomination is,
Right.
you can carve and you can decide, I'm saving 20%.
Yeah.
I'm saving
Correct.
2%, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Every penny counts, and
I
it makes a
agree.
difference.
Yeah, I've seen
Now-
it, I feel it,
Yeah.
I know it.
But
Yeah.
the other thing is, sometimes we spend money on stuff. that we don't need to spend.
I want to talk about
You know,
that.
Guilty
imagine
as
something
charged.
seriously, think
Girl.
about it, guys. You could be buying chips in Tao
In fact, I think these earrings I
or
didn't need.
burgers. Yeah, there we go. They're beautiful.
You know, do you really need another pair of
No,
earrings?
do you need to spend? Go back to what you spend your money on. And guys, even if it's that 1,000, even if it's 1,000,000,
Yeah.
what are you spending your money on?
Can
Do
I
you
ta-
really need to? Do you have an example?
I'm
Yeah.
going to give examples,
Okay,
which
go
is
for
why
it.
I was saying comparison is the killer of joy,
Yeah.
which is why we need to be careful.
Yeah.
But I want to use another anecdote, which is birds of a feather. The company you keep matters, especially for us as women. The
Yeah.
company you keep
Yeah.
matters. So here's my philosophy in life. I reached a point where, in my 30s where I thought, hey, I have 10 handbags. Do I really need
And do you know what?
these
You
10?
always wear 2 or 3.
Yeah, max.
Now I have a black, a green, a nude, and some mixed color thingy, Majid. That's it.
Yeah.
I realize now more and more the materialism
Yes.
with which we come to spaces, and there's some friends who are like, oh my God, there's a new Chanel. Oh, do you not have it?
Yeah.
No, I don't need it because
Yes.
the cost of that could be appropriately used for an investment. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, it's because I stopped the habit of let me have another 10 handbags
Yeah.
that I have been able to invest in an apartment in a
Yeah.
country on the continent. I've been able to invest in a farm
Yeah.
in my home country in Zambia. I've been able to invest in a home here in
Yes.
Kenya.
Fantastic.
And it's taken me being very disciplined.
Yeah.
Really, because no amount, no little, and my friendships, I've also been, you guys are part of my friendship circle.
Yeah.
And you've invested really well as
Yeah.
you have, you just say, Musanda, what do you think of this?
Yes.
And that whole birds of a feather.
Yes.
Can I come? Let me
Yes.
also come with
Yes.
you on that.
Yeah.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
On some of this. And I love the crew back there because
The amening.
you're amening with us. Because here's the thing about birds of a feather. I don't know. Even if you're I would say 20, you can even start younger. But I would say call it 25. When you're hanging out with your crew,
Yeah.
men and women, boys and girls alike,
Yeah.
are you just saying, oh yeah, let's just go, that's Chanel, or yes, that long weave, it's only $1,000.
Or
I can
wine,
save.
by the
Yeah.
way.
Or let's just
Yeah.
drink, bottles. Is that all
Yeah.
like you're doing with your friends every single day? How about a separate conversation? Did you read this book? You guys have to read this book. Let me tell you. In fact, I am going to, you don't read. I'm going to PDF you the last page that has the 5 things you need to know about wealth management or about
Absolutely.
being professional. Those are
Absolutely.
the conversations. Or, separate to this, just holistic conversations about life. How is your dad doing? How is your uncle doing? I remember you were saying they were in hospital and they didn't have insurance and you were looking for money.
Yeah.
If you're 20, let me tell you, if you're 20 and you're not having those conversations, please comment and just tell us why you choose to surround yourself with emptiness. And I'm sorry to be harsh on this because you get to 30, you get to 40, and that can only build. So that as we're sitting here, we're going to have champagne for the big birthday. We're going to have champagne to send away to our friend traveling, to Australia tonight just for a bit, or tomorrow rather. But as we do that, I'm going to want to know, you're really good at real estate. You're really good on the land side, and so you've got to have those conversations. Quick example, a really good friend of mine, end of last year, we were sitting having, a glass of white wine, just before we all went for the holidays. And she said to me, Mish, you know what, this thing of you're saving, next year, can you by January put X thousand in your account? And I said, no, I can only do a fraction of that. She's like, no, I think you can. Okay, make it by February. And I just thought, that's so odd. We were talking about this lovely wine that we're having. And then we were just talking about our nice outfits and what we were going to do that night. And she was just like, what's the word? I challenge you.
I dare you.
Do you know that by March, it wasn't January because you have the festive expenses. It wasn't February because, nya excuse. But by March, I had it. And I thought, gosh, I need to hang out with this friend a bit more. Because I had a chunk of change that I would never have had by then.
Absolutely.
So that's another tip. Surround yourself with friends and talk about the real
Birds
serious
of a
stuff of
feather.
life.
Yes.
Birds of a feather. I have taken your idea and ran away with it gloriously because I think it's such a good one.
Yeah, and so linked to that
so
was
that-
those naysayers. Those it's back to the same thing. Are you hanging out with people who are so limited in their mindset, in the way that they think, that they see the negative or the impossibility in everything you're thinking of doing, and so they're keeping you down with them. Back to birds of a feather.
The
So I
crab
think
mentality.
that's the crux of it.
That is the crux. And the thing is, we'll have different friends for different things. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't say drop your friends, but just know if you're trying to have a serious conversation and they just can't or won't, and then you have some fantastic new knowledge you want to impart upon them, and they're still like, it's just not penetrating, that's fine. Hang out, but limit your time. Make sure that in addition to that friend, you've got somebody else who's just more enriching, to really use the word for this.
I think it's about being purposeful.
Yes.
Being very purposeful, but also being very discerning.
Yeah.
No, we talked about, I think we did a video about divorcing friends, how can we be more discerning? How can we be more purposeful in our spaces? Because there are friendships where your friends are very jealous of the decisions you're making, the meaningful decisions. And I think I want to try a little bit, though I'm saying like a Kenyan I want to.
I love it. You say you're from Zambia, but really,
Kenyanness has come out.
Kenya's given you some
So
nice...
I want to talk about, some women who basically decide and say when they're young and say, I want to marry a rich man and he will take care of me and blah, blah. I mean, the whole financial independence for women.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that we need to start inculcating in girls.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That it's not about the externality, the rich husband, the daddy, the parent who just gives you money, because those individuals may not be there when something dramatic happens.
Absolutely.
absolutely
So just on that, I think sometimes a lot of young people also, maybe even older people, when your parents have something, you kind of assume you'll automatically inherit.
Yes.
And the point I want to make is that
so
it's your parents' money. It's your parents' property. It's theirs to do with as they will. So don't sit there kind of saying, Papa has dough, PhD.
I've never heard that. Where do you get these things from? Do you get these expressions?
It's one of the old ones.
Papa has dough.
But Papa has dough. So what? It's not your money. It's his. It's hers.
Oh,
and so you need to work hard.
I
A lot of parents will sacrifice everything to give their children a good education. Correct. We've all done it, whether it's our children
and
directly, whether it's our extended family children that we're helping.
Yeah.
That's why we do it. But it's so that you can go and build your own.
Yes.
So don't sit there thinking my father's land or fighting with your siblings over land. Because it's dad's land and you should have this piece. It's not your right to have it.
Exactly. On the fighting part, I just met somebody actually who is fighting with her siblings over land. And I just think it's taking so much of her time. Again, back to that mental, space as well. It's just dragging on and on, falling out with the siblings. Parents are gone. And I'm like, is this really what the parents would have wished, the dad, the PhD would have wished, for you? And so again, trying to distill some nuggets here, I am going back to things that seem like a good idea so far, right? Like owning your apartment. Some people have different views on this, or buying land. Land is is a very long kind of term investment. So these are things that I'm picking from you. But also I would say very, very practically, maybe having that conversation with the next generation. So having conversation with parents, if we see they're done, investing in us, and this is very much in Africa, in Asia as well, all that money on our education. So relax, parents, and never, and make sure maybe their will is intact, more for them. And then as you get into, I would say it's never too early to think about our wills.
Absolutely.
You can be 25 for all I care, but making sure that our wills also state with my little, chunk of change, kind of what I would like. If I give it to charity, that is on me. So my siblings and the kids or the whoever, nobody ends up fighting and unfortunately being mentally unwell because I didn't leave a will. I didn't leave a will, and they're there thinking that I think I think this house, this is mine. That's the other thing we don't do, is we don't write wills. So
write wills, because remember traditionally there was that thing of you're calling death if you write a will. Even if it's the clothes on your back, to the point you're making, write that will.
Yeah.
But I wanted to also touch on something that comes back to birds of a feather. If you have the right friends, you might not have all the money to make the investment on your own.
Nice.
But the concept of chama, Ubuntu, you know, that you can do stuff together. I know a project where there's a group of young people that came together, saved money, bought a gorgeous house in a very high value residential place. The value of that property in 3 years went up by, I think, 3 to 5 times. I think they sold it, if I remember correctly. But they were a group of friends.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, friends fall out. So you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you have it
paperwork.
Legal paperwork.
legally written,
Yeah.
so that if somebody falls out or somebody decides they want out, how do you make sure that
What
either you guys,
mechanisms are in
what are the
place,
mechanisms?
right.
Do you buy them out? Or do you interview the person that they want to sell to so that there's some kind of synergy, some kind of common values? You know, think about that stuff. But the point I wanted to make is you don't have to do it on your own if you don't have the money to do it on your own. You can come together.
That
But
is
come together with the
such-
right people, the right birds of a
That is
feather.
such
Yeah.
an important idea, and it happens at any level. It can
Yeah.
be something really small.
Yeah.
Another piece of advice, you know, while we're here talking about this subject you picked,
And it's a rich subject.
well, you know, because I think that we started out, speak for self, 20 years ago, you know, I was really, you know, when I was 21, I had a very serious job. I had a master's and a job. Maybe call it 22. The job could cover, you know, my bills in the way that, and that this was the US calculation at the time, where your salary, 1/3 is rent, and then, you know, that ensures that you have the rest for other. So I was able to get that math right. But here's the thing, you know, one's job doesn't necessarily cover one's lifestyle.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
for example, you know, if the arts and the creative industries are still not paying as much as, say, some, you know, I don't know, a position in finance, or if another example, non-for-profits will not pay as much as, say, an international or multinational. There's just some realities.
Yeah.
But that's the work you want to do. One practical advice, I wish I knew this earlier. Those things, you called
Yeah.
it a side hustle.
Yeah.
Those other things that you do, and getting into the practice of collecting, even if they're coins to start,
Yeah.
collecting money outside this job,
Yeah.
not only makes you potentially even happier, because sometimes we don't have the luxury
Right.
of working on our passion.
Yeah.
So work can just be the thing you studied or the job you got and so on. And then that side hustle thing can be your passion.
Yeah.
And there could be coins from that. So it might just make you happy on the one hand, happier,
Yeah.
because that passion is fueling those positive vibes, right?
Yeah.
But it also might luck you out in terms of getting another source of income.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
You know,
Yes.
another source of income. And
Yeah.
this I have learned, you know, when I say, you know, I'm a multi hyphenate, and we call ourselves multilicious sometimes. As part of that, there are, you know, a few coins that can come out of, say, my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
wish I had known this
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, absolutely.
You know?
So, my parting shot, by the way, we could go on until the
I know.
until sunset.
I know. I
But-
feel so, like, I didn't realize, I feel so viscerally about some of these things, because some of these things I should have known 20 years ago and I didn't. So anyway.
Absolutely. So, parting
Same.
shot, you can earn, the important thing is you want to think about saving. Don't spend everything you're making. You want to think about who you're surrounding yourself with.
Yeah.
Who are the birds of a feather?
Feather.
If you're just there in the bar laughing and trying to impress the fellow drunkards, guys,
I'm telling you.
there's something wrong with that picture. Please change it. There were a host of others. Watch this again so you can see all the wonderful, wonderful nuggets. In the meantime, girls, we've got to wrap it up. So, guys, thank you for watching. Please subscribe.